The station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Alaris Prime, and it was the largest structure ever built by living hands. Crystal towers rose from its surface like frozen lightning. Ships from 100 worlds docked at its ports. Here, the great powers of the galaxy met to discuss trade, territory, and war. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the window of her quarters and watched the ships arrive. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had served humanity for 40 years, first as a soldier, then as a diplomat. She had seen many things, but today she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt afraid. The Concord of Seven had summoned humanity to this place. The Concord was an alliance of the oldest and most powerful species in the known galaxy. They had ruled the stars for 10,000 years before humans had learned to make fire. To them, humanity was young. Humanity was small. Humanity was soft. Elena knew why they had been called. The Vethkai had demanded it. The Vethkai were insects. They stood 8 feet tall on 6 legs, with hard shells the color of dried blood. They had conquered 12 star systems in the last century. They believed they were the chosen rulers of the universe, and they had grown tired of watching humans spread across the galaxy. A soft chime told Elena it was time. She straightened her uniform, checked her reflection, and walked out to meet her fate. The council chamber was a vast dome of living crystal. Light moved through its walls like slow fire. 7 platforms floated in the air, one for each member of the Concord. Below them, on the floor, stood a single platform for humanity. Elena walked to her place and looked up at the beings who would decide her species. The Vethkai representative was the largest. His name was Krixthal, and he was a hive commander. His compound eyes reflected Elena like 1,000 broken mirrors. Beside him floated the ethereals, beings of pure energy who had forgotten what it meant to have bodies. The Morkan were there too, massive creatures of stone and metal who lived for thousands of years. The others were equally ancient, equally powerful. "You know why you have been called," Krixthal said. His voice was like metal scraping against glass. "Your species has spread too far. You have taken worlds that belong to the Vethkai." Elena kept her face calm. "The worlds we have settled were empty. We found no Vethkai there. They were reserved for future expansion," Krixthal replied. "Your presence is an insult to our empire. You will withdraw from the outer colonies. You will surrender all territory beyond the Soul Barrier. You will pay tribute to the Vethkai for 100 years." Elena felt the weight of those words. The outer colonies held 2 billion human beings. Abandoning them would mean death or slavery for millions. "And if we refuse?" she asked quietly. Krixthal's mandibles clicked together. It was a Vethkai smile. "Then we will teach your soft species what war truly means. We will burn your colonies to ash. We will hunt your ships across the void. We will find Earth itself and turn it into a monument to your foolishness." Elena looked at the other members of the Concord. "Will the Concord not intervene? We have traded with you. We have kept your laws. We have done nothing wrong." The Morkan representative spoke. His voice was like an avalanche. "The Concord does not interfere in disputes between species. You must resolve this yourselves." "You mean we must surrender or die?" Elena said. "Those are your choices," the ethereal agreed. His voice was like wind through empty halls. "The Vethkai are a founding member of the Concord. You are a young species with no military worth mentioning. We suggest you choose wisely." Elena looked at them all. She saw no sympathy, no help, no hope. The great powers of the galaxy had decided that humanity was too weak to protect. They expected her to bow. They expected her to beg. Instead, she smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her lips. The aliens did not understand it. They had never learned to read human faces. They did not know that a human smile could mean many things: joy, friendship, greeting, or warning. "I thank the Concorde for its hospitality," Elena said. Her voice was steady and calm. "I will need to consult with Earth before giving our answer. I request a recess of 30 standard days." Quickstyl's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Take your time, little human. Consult with your leaders. Count your ships and your soldiers. The answer will be the same. You cannot fight us. You can only accept your place." Elena bowed slightly, a gesture of respect she did not feel. Then she walked out of the council chamber, her footsteps echoing in the crystal halls. Her staff was waiting outside. They were young, most of them. They had grown up in a galaxy at peace. They did not know what Elena knew. They did not remember what she remembered. "Ambassador," her aide said. He was a young man named David, and his face was pale with fear. "What will we do? We cannot fight the Vethkai. Our fleet is small. Our colonies have no defenses. They will destroy us." Elena kept walking. "Prepare my private communication suite. I need to speak with Earth." "But Ambassador, what will you tell them? What can anyone do?" Elena stopped. She turned and looked at her young aide. For a moment, something ancient moved behind her eyes. Something that did not match her gray hair and calm face. Something that remembered fire and blood and the screaming of enemies. "David," she said softly, "what do you know about the Gene Wars?" He blinked. "The Gene Wars? That was over 300 years ago. Before we left Earth. Before everything." "Yes," Elena said. "Before everything. Before we became merchants and scholars and diplomats. Before we learned to smile and bow and trade." She turned away and continued walking. "There is something I need to tell the council. Something they should have learned before threatening us." David hurried after her. "What is that, Ambassador?" Elena did not answer. She was thinking about old stories. Stories her grandmother had told her. Stories about a time when humanity had nearly destroyed itself. Stories about the warriors who had fought in those terrible years. Stories about what humans could become when they had nothing left to lose. The galaxy thought humanity was soft. The galaxy was about to learn the truth. In her private chamber, Elena activated a communication channel that officially did not exist. It connected to a place that no alien had ever seen. A place that most humans had forgotten. A face appeared on the screen. It was old and hard, with eyes like winter ice. "Ambassador Vasquez," the face said. "We have been watching. We know what happened." "Then you know what I am about to ask," Elena replied. There was a long silence. Then the old face nodded slowly. "Wake the remnants," he said. Elena closed her eyes. She had hoped it would never come to this. She had spent her life trying to prevent this moment. But the Vethkai had left her no choice. "Yes," she said. "Wake them all." Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a facility that appeared on no map, the Shadow Council gathered for the first time in 60 years. They sat around a table made of black stone. There were 12 of them, men and women whose names the public would never know. They controlled the hidden side of human civilization, the side that smiled at aliens while building weapons in secret, the side that shook hands with trading partners while mapping their weaknesses. Director Chun was the oldest among them. He had white hair and a face like cracked leather. He had been part of the council for 50 years. He had hoped to die before this meeting became necessary. "The situation is clear," he said. "The Vethkai will attack in 30 days. The Concorde will not help us. Our visible military forces are not enough to stop them." Admiral Sarah Black leaned forward. She was a hard woman with short gray hair and scars on her hands. "Our hidden fleet can buy us time. We have 300 warships that the galaxy does not know about, but the Vethkai have thousands. We cannot win a long war. Then, we do not fight a long war, said a voice from the shadows. Everyone turned. A man stepped into light. He was younger than the others, perhaps 50, with cold blue eyes and a face that never smiled. His name was Marcus Webb, and he ran the Department of Final Options. We use the remnants, Webb continued. That is why they exist. That is why we have kept them frozen for 3 centuries. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the remnants. Everyone feared them. Director Chun spoke carefully. The remnants are dangerous. They were put to sleep for good reason. They are not normal soldiers. They are survivors of the worst period in human history. That is exactly why we need them, Webb replied. The Vethkai think they understand war. They have conquered species that surrendered after a few battles. They have never faced an enemy that fights without rules. They have never met humans who grew up when there were no rules. Admiral Black shook her head. Those soldiers have been in cryosleep for over 300 years. We do not even know if they can still function. They can, Webb said. I have reviewed the medical data. Their bodies are preserved perfectly. Their minds are intact. When they wake up, they will be exactly as they were when they went to sleep. He paused. Exactly as dangerous. Director Chun rubbed his eyes. He looked very old in that moment. You understand what this means. If we wake them, we cannot control them. They do not follow modern rules of war. They do not take prisoners unless it serves a purpose. They do not show mercy. Good, Webb said simply. The galaxy needs to see what humanity looks like when we stop being polite. The vote was quick. 11 members voted yes. Only Director Chun voted no. But he did not argue. He knew there was no other choice. The auras went out across human space. In 17 hidden facilities, buried under mountains and moons and asteroids, ancient machines began to hum. Cryogenic pods that had been silent for centuries started their revival sequences. Frozen blood began to warm. Hearts that had been still since before the stars were mapped began to beat again. On a moon orbiting Neptune, in a bunker called Site 7, General Marcus Stone opened his eyes. The light was too bright. His muscles were stiff. His throat was dry. But his mind was sharp. It was always sharp. That was why they had made him a general in the old days. That was why he had survived when so many others had died. A young woman in a white coat stood beside his pod. She looked nervous. She should be nervous. General Stone, she said. Welcome back. The year is 2847. You have been in cryosleep for 312 years. Stone sat up slowly. His body remembered how to move, even after so long. Why was I woken? The woman handed him a datapad. You are needed, sir. Humanity is under threat. Stone read the information quickly. The Vethkai. The Concord. The ultimatum. He understood immediately. He had seen this pattern before, centuries ago. A stronger power demanding surrender. A weaker power expected to bow. He smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. How many of us are being woken? He asked. 10,000 across all sites. The full remnant force. Stone nodded. He swung his legs over the side of the pod and stood. He was tall and lean, with gray hair and eyes the color of dirty ice. His body was covered in scars. Each one told a story. Each story ended in death. Take me to the others, he said. The revival center was enormous. Hundreds of pods lined the walls, and from each one, a figure was emerging. Men and women of all ages, all sizes, all backgrounds. They had one thing in common. They had all lived through hell and come out the other side. Stone recognized many faces. Colonel Maya Chen, who had held the Singapore line for 3 weeks against an army 10 times her size. Captain Viktor Volkov, who had walked across a frozen Siberia to bring warning of an attack. Sergeant Lisa Park, who had killed an enemy general with a piece of broken glass. These were not normal soldiers. Normal soldiers fought for their country or their cause. The remnants fought because fighting was all they knew. They had been born into war. They had grown up surrounded by death. They had become something that peace could not contain. That was why they had volunteered for Cryosleep. They knew they did not belong in the new world that humanity was building. They knew they were dangerous to their own people. So they agreed to be frozen, to be stored like weapons in an armory, to be brought out only if humanity faced destruction. Now the day had come. Stone gathered his officers in a briefing room. They sat in silence, still adjusting to their new reality. 300 years. Everyone they had known was dead. Everything they had fought for was ancient history. Only the fight remained. The situation is simple, Stone told them. An alien species wants to destroy humanity. The rest of the galaxy expects us to surrender. They think we are soft. A low murmur went through the room. The remnants did not like being called soft. We are going to teach them the truth, Stone continued. We are going to show them what humans did to each other before we learned to be civilized. We are going to remind the galaxy why our ancestors crawled out of the caves and conquered a planet. Colonel Chun raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir? Stone's smile grew wider. There are no rules. The enemy wants total war. We will give them total war. We will not just defeat them. We will make them so afraid that no alien species will ever threaten Earth again. He stood and looked at his soldiers, his family, his fellow monsters. The galaxy thinks humanity evolved past violence, he said. They are wrong. We just learned to hide it. Now it is time to remember who we really are. The remnants rose to their feet as one. No cheering. No shouting. Just cold, hard silence. They were ready. In the depths of space, the Vethkai Armada prepared for an easy conquest. They had done this many times before. A show of force. A few burned cities. Then surrender and tribute. They had no idea what was coming for them. The modern officers watched the remnants with a mixture of fear and fascination. These ancient warriors moved differently. They spoke differently. They looked at the world with eyes that had seen too much. Lieutenant James Cooper was assigned to assist General Stone with logistics. He was 30 years old, born on a peaceful colony world where the worst violence he had ever seen was a bar fight. Now he stood in a room full of killers from another age. General, Cooper said, approaching Stone carefully. The armory is ready. We have the latest pulse rifles, plasma grenades, and targeting systems. Our weapons are far more advanced than anything from your time. Stone walked past him without looking at the displayed weapons. Show me the machine shop, sir. The place where you build things, metal, tools, fire. Cooper led him to the station's manufacturing center. Stone walked among the machines, touching them, studying them. Then he began to give orders. I need blades. Long ones, short ones. Edges that can cut through chitin. He picked up a piece of scrap metal. I need chemical compounds. Things that burn. Things that smoke. Things that make noise. Cooper was confused. Sir, we have weapons that can kill from a mile away. Why would you need blades? Stone turned to face him. The young officer saw something in those ancient eyes that made him step back. Lieutenant, let me ask you something. What is the purpose of war? To defeat the enemy, sir. Wrong. Stone dropped the metal and walked closer. The purpose of war is to make the enemy stop fighting. You can do that by killing them all. But there is a faster way. You make them so afraid that they cannot continue. You break their spirit before you break their bodies. He gestured at the modern weapons. Your pulse rifles kill quickly and cleanly. Very efficient. Very humane. But the Vethkai are not afraid of clean death. They are insects. They think in terms of the hive. Individual deaths mean nothing to them. Then how do we make them afraid? Stone smiled that terrible smile. We show them something they have never imagined. We show them what humans do when we fight without rules. We make every death slow. We make every death loud. We make every death ugly. He leaned closer. We teach them that fighting humans is not worth the cost. The machine shop worked through the night. Under Stone's direction, the remnants crafted weapons that belonged in a nightmare. Serrated blades designed to tear rather than cut. Chemical mixtures that would burn through Vethkai shells and keep burning for hours. Sound devices that would broadcast screams across all frequencies. Colonel Chun supervised the armor modifications. The remnants rejected the sleek modern suits. Instead, they painted their armor in patterns of red and black. They added spikes and bones and trophies from their old wars. They made themselves look like demons from a fever dream. Captain Volkov was in charge of tactics. He studied the Vethkai war records for 3 days without sleep. Then he gathered the other officers. The insects fight in swarms, he explained. They overwhelm enemies with numbers. They use fear as a weapon. They make themselves look big and terrible so their enemies will run. And their weakness? Colonel Chun asked. They have never fought an enemy that does not run. They have never faced something that makes them feel fear instead. Volkov pulled up a diagram of a Vethkai hive ship. Their ships are built for efficiency. Long corridors. Open spaces. Perfect for swarm tactics. He smiled. It was the same cold smile that Stone wore. Also perfect for close combat. For ambushes. For traps. Sergeant Park joined the discussion. She was small and quiet, with scars across her face and hands that never stopped moving. The insects communicate through chemical signals, pheromones. If we disrupt those signals, they lose coordination. They panic. Can we do that? I have already started working on it. A gas that will block their chemical communication. They will not be able to talk to each other. They will not know what is happening. Her eyes glittered. They will be alone in the dark with us. The days passed quickly. The remnants trained constantly, rebuilding reflexes that 3 centuries of sleep had dulled. They sparred with each other, brutal fights that left blood on the training mats. They practiced boarding actions, moving through corridors in perfect silence. They learned the layout of Vethkai ships until they could navigate them blind. Modern soldiers watched from a distance. They whispered among themselves. These ancient warriors were something beyond their understanding. They did not fight for glory or honor. They fought to survive. And when survival required becoming a monster, they became monsters without hesitation. One night, Cooper found Stone alone on an observation deck, staring out at the stars. "General," he said carefully, "may I ask you something?" Stone did not turn around. "Ask. How do you do it? How do you become what you become? Is it not difficult to be so cruel?" Stone was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant. "Let me tell you about the old world, Lieutenant. The world I grew up in. By the time I was 10 years old, I had seen my parents die. By 15, I had killed my first man. By 20, I had lost count of how many." He turned to face Cooper. His expression was not angry or proud. It was simply empty. We did not choose to be this way. The world made us. When you grow up surrounded by death, you learn to deal death. When kindness gets you killed, you stop being kind. When trust is betrayed again and again, you stop trusting. But the wars ended. Humanity built something better. Yes, and we were glad. We wanted humanity to have peace. We wanted children to grow up like you, soft and trusting and kind. Stone looked back at the stars. But someone had to remember the old ways. Someone had to keep the darkness alive, just in case it was needed again. Why? Because the universe is not kind, Lieutenant. Out there, among the stars, there are things that want to hurt us. Things that will not stop because we ask nicely. Things that only understand one language. He made a fist. This language. Cooper did not know what to say. He stood in silence beside the ancient general, looking out at the distant lights. I do not enjoy what I am, Stone said finally. None of us do. We dream about the people we killed. We remember every face. But when we wake up, we do what needs to be done. Because if we do not, the people like you will have to learn how. And I would not wish that on anyone. 3 days before the deadline, the remnants were ready. 10,000 warriors from humanity's darkest age, armed with weapons designed to terrify and destroy. They loaded onto ships that looked like merchant vessels from the outside. Inside, they waited in darkness, silent and patient. General Stone sent one final message to Ambassador Vasquez. We are coming. Tell the Vethkai nothing. Let them think they are attacking helpless colonists. Let them come in close, confident, and careless. He paused before adding, And Ambassador, when it starts, do not watch the recordings. You do not need those images in your head. Vasquez read the message and felt a chill run down her spine. She had known what she was unleashing. But knowing was different from understanding. She sent a reply. Do what you must. End this forever. Stone read her words and nodded. Then he closed his eyes and began to prepare. In his mind, he became something other than human. Something older. Something darker. The Vethkai were coming. And the old wolves were hungry. The Vethkai armada dropped out of hyperspace above the Nexus Gate colony. 200 warships, each one bristling with weapons. 10 million warrior drones, bred for conquest and slaughter. At the center of the formation floated the Hive flagship, a vessel the size of a small moon. Hive Commander Kriksthal watched from his throne as his fleet surrounded the human world. This was his favorite moment. The moment before the killing began. The moment when prey realized they had nowhere to run. Scan the planet, he ordered. Show me their defenses. His subordinates worked quickly. The results surprised them. Commander, one reported, the colony appears to be empty. All life signs are concentrated in the orbital stations. The surface is abandoned. Kriksthal's mandibles clicked with confusion. They evacuated? Where did they think they could run? Unknown, Commander. We are also detecting minimal defensive systems. A few weapon platforms. Some shield generators. Nothing that could stop our fleet. This was wrong. The Vethkai had conquered many species, and they always fought back. Even hopeless resistance was better than this empty silence. It made Kriksthal uneasy. Try to contact them, he ordered. The communication screen flickered. A human face appeared. It was an old man with gray hair and eyes like winter ice. He was smiling. Welcome to Nexus Gate, the human said. We have been waiting for you. I am Hive Commander Kriksthal. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Surrender? The old man laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. No, Commander. We will not surrender. We will not run. We will not beg. He leaned forward. We accept your terms of engagement. Before Kriksthal could respond, the transmission changed. Now it showed a single phrase, repeating in every language the Vethkai understood. We accept your terms of engagement. What does this mean? Kriksthal demanded. This is some kind of trick. Commander, a subordinate shouted. Multiple contacts emerging from behind the planet's moon. They are small, fast, heading directly for our fleet. The suicide pods came in waves. They were tiny things, barely big enough for one human. They had no weapons, no shields, no engines for retreat. They had only one purpose, to punch through the hulls of Vethkai ships and deliver their cargo. The Vethkai guns tore many of them apart. But there were too many, and they moved too fast. Hundreds made it through. They struck the Vethkai ships like bullets, breaching armor and lodging deep inside. Then the remnants emerged. On the cruiser blade of the Hive, warriors rushed to repel the boarders. They found 3 humans standing in a broken corridor, surrounded by smoke and debris. The Vethkai outnumbered them 50-1. The Vethkai charged. They expected the humans to shoot from a distance, as other species did. Instead, the humans moved toward them. They moved fast. Too fast. They ducked under slashing claws and drove blades into joints and eyes. They threw chemical grenades that filled the corridor with fire. They fought in silence, without fear, without hesitation. In 30 seconds, every Vethkai in that corridor was dead. The humans did not stop to celebrate. They split up and moved deeper into the ship. Behind them, they left something new. Speakers that broadcast screams on every frequency. The dying sounds of Vethkai played on a loop, echoing through the entire vessel. The same scene played out across the fleet. The remnants were everywhere. They appeared from vents and maintenance shafts. They ambushed patrols. They disabled life support in sections of ships and waited in the darkness for rescue teams to arrive. The Vethkai pheromone network began to flood with panic signals. Soldiers reported enemies that appeared from nowhere. They described humans who did not stop fighting even when wounded. They spoke of weapons that burned through armor and kept burning. They screamed about the sounds, the terrible sounds that followed the invaders everywhere. On the Hive flagship, Kriksthal watched his fleet fall apart. Ship after ship went dark. Communication lines filled with screams and static. Warriors who had conquered a dozen worlds begged for help that would not come. Send reinforcements. He ordered. Concentrate our forces. These are just humans. But his subordinates could not follow orders. The chemical gas the remnants had released was spreading through the ship's ventilation systems. It blocked the pheromone signals that Vethkai used to coordinate. Suddenly, warriors who had fought as one mind found themselves alone. They could not smell their commander's orders. They could not sense their brothers' positions. They panicked. General Stone led the assault on the Hive flagship personally. He took 50 of his best soldiers and carved a path through the massive vessel. They moved like ghosts, striking from shadows, vanishing before counterattacks could form. Stone found Kriksthal in the command center. The Hive commander stood surrounded by his elite guards, hundreds of the largest and strongest Vethkai warriors. They formed a wall of chitin and claws between Stone and their master. Stone stopped 20 feet away. His armor was covered in alien blood. His blade dripped onto the floor. Behind him, his soldiers spread out, silent and ready. Surrender, Stone said. And this ends. Kriksthal's mandibles clicked rapidly. You think 50 humans can defeat my guards? You are insane. Probably, Stone agreed. But sanity was never our strong point. The guards charged. What followed was not a battle. It was a butchering. The remnants moved through the Vethkai like farmers harvesting wheat. They dodged and weaved and cut. They fought in pairs, covering each other, creating gaps in the Vethkai formation and exploiting them instantly. Colonel Chun took a claw through her shoulder and kept fighting. Captain Volkov lost 3 fingers and switched his blade to his other hand. Sergeant Park killed 9 guards with a broken piece of metal after her weapon was destroyed. In 4 minutes, every guard was dead. Stone stood before Crickstall, breathing hard but steady. His soldiers spread out behind him, wounded but alive. "Your fleet is falling," Stone said. "Your warriors are dying. In 6 hours, every ship you brought will be a tomb." He stepped closer to the Hive commander. "But I am going to let you live." Crickstall could not understand. "Why?" "Because you are going to deliver a message. You are going to return to Vethkai space and tell your queens what happened here. You are going to describe every detail, every death, every scream." Stone's voice dropped to a whisper. "You are going to tell them what humans do when you threaten our homes. And if I refuse? If I attack your colonies anyway?" Stone nodded slowly. "I was hoping you would ask that." He pulled out a small device. "We have memorized the coordinates of your 12 colony worlds, your nursery planets, your breeding grounds. For every human world you burn, we will visit one of yours. Not with ships. With us, remnants. We will walk through your hatcheries. We will teach your larvae what human children learned in the old days." He held up the device. "This transmits directly to ships waiting at each of your worlds. One signal from me, and they attack. They are carrying soldiers who make my team look gentle." Crickstall stared at the human. He tried to find the lie. He tried to see the weakness. All he found was cold, absolute truth. "You would not," he whispered. "That would be genocide." "Yes," Stone agreed. "It would be. And we would rather die than do it. But if you force us to choose between your children and ours, we will make that choice without hesitation." He leaned forward until his face was inches from the commander's compound eyes. "That is what we are, Commander. That is what we have always been. We are the species that burned our own world 3 times and kept fighting. We are the species that destroyed ourselves and climbed out of the ashes. You think you understand war? You are children playing games. We wrote the rules in blood." The battle ended 2 hours later. The surviving Vethkai ships retreated, carrying their wounded and their dead. They left behind the wreckage of 140 vessels. Human losses were 312 remnants killed, 800 wounded. The galaxy watched the recordings that followed. Ships from every species had observed the battle from safe distances. They saw the suicide pods. They saw the close combat in the corridors. They heard the screams and the silence that followed. They learned to be afraid. Stone sent a message to Ambassador Vasquez. "It is done. They will not return." Vasquez read the message and closed her eyes. The cost had been terrible, but the war was over. Now came the hardest part, making sure it never happened again. The crystal halls of Alaris Prime were silent as Ambassador Vasquez walked toward the council chamber. A month had passed since the Battle of Nexus Gate. The galaxy had changed. She could feel it in the way alien species looked at her delegation. Before, they had looked down with pity or contempt. Now, their eyes held something different: respect and fear. General Stone walked beside her. He had refused to wear diplomatic clothing. His armor was clean now, repaired and polished, but still marked with the scars of battle. Behind them marched an honor guard of 20 remnants. They moved in perfect silence, their eyes scanning every corner and shadow. The Concord of 7 was waiting. But now there were only 6 platforms in the air. The Vethkai platform was empty. Hive Commander Crickstall had been executed by his own queens for his failure. The Vethkai had withdrawn from the Concord, returning to their home worlds to rebuild and remember. The Morkan representative spoke first. His voice was careful, measured. "Ambassador Vasquez, thank you for accepting our invitation." Vasquez stopped at her platform, but she did not step onto it. Instead, she remained on the floor, looking up at the ancient powers of the galaxy. "I did not come here to stand below you," she said. "Humanity has earned its place. We will take our seat among equals, or we will leave. The silence stretched. The Concord members looked at each other. They communicated in ways humans could not see or hear. Finally, a new platform rose from the floor, floating up to join the others. It was the same size, the same height. Vasquez stepped onto it. Stone remained on the ground with his soldiers, watching. "We have reviewed the battle recordings," the ethereal said. Its voice was quieter than before, almost hesitant. "We did not know humans were capable of such things. We hoped you would never find out," Vasquez replied. "For 300 years, we showed you only our peaceful face. Our merchants, our scholars, our diplomats. We wanted to believe that face was the real one. And is it not?" Vasquez considered the question. She looked down at Stone, at the remnants standing like statues of war. "It is real," she said, "but it is not complete. Humanity has two natures. We can build. We can create. We can love and dream and reach for the stars." She paused. "We can also destroy. We can become something terrible when our survival is threatened. That capacity never left us. We simply learned to control it." The Morcan leaned forward. "Why did you hide this? If you had shown your true strength, no one would have threatened you." "Because we were ashamed," Vasquez admitted. "Before we came to the stars, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Many times. We fought wars that killed billions of our own kind. We poisoned our own world. We committed horrors that still give us nightmares." She gestured at the remnants. "These soldiers are survivors of that time. We put them to sleep because we did not want to remember what we once were. Then why wake them now? Because the Vethkai gave us no choice. Because the Concord offered no protection." Vasquez's voice hardened slightly. "Because the galaxy looked at humanity and saw prey. You needed to learn the truth. We are not prey. We have never been prey. We are the species that clawed its way to the top of its food chain and then conquered a planet. We are the species that looked at the stars and said, 'That is ours.'" The chamber was very quiet. The ancient powers of the galaxy looked at this small human woman and saw something they had not expected. Not anger, not pride, something closer to sadness. "We do not want to be feared," Vasquez continued. "We want to be friends. We want to trade and learn and grow together. But we will not be bullied. We will not be threatened. And we will not be destroyed." She stood straight. "That is the truth of humanity. Accept it or not. But do not make the mistake of testing us again." After the council session, Vasquez met privately with Stone. They stood on a balcony overlooking the station's central hub. Ships from dozens of worlds came and went, carrying beings who now looked at humans differently. "The Concord will grant us full membership," Vasquez said. "Equal voting rights. Protected territories. Everything we asked for." Stone nodded. He did not seem happy. "We expected as much. Fear is a good teacher. What will you do now? You and your soldiers? Return to sleep." Stone looked out at the stars. "That was always the plan. We wake up, we solve the problem, we go back to the cold. The galaxy does not need us anymore. And honestly, we do not belong here." Vasquez turned to face him. "You could stay. Find a place in the new humanity. You have earned it." Stone was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. "Ambassador, do you know what I dream about? Not war, not killing. I dream about a house, a garden, children playing. Simple things that normal people have." He shook his head. "But every time I close my eyes, I see the faces of everyone I have killed. Thousands of them. Millions maybe, if you count the orders I gave. How do you live a normal life with that in your head?" "I do not know," Vasquez admitted. "Neither do we. That is why we sleep. In the cold, there are no dreams, no memories, no guilt. He looked at her with those ancient, tired eyes. We saved humanity today, but we are not part of humanity anymore. We are weapons, useful when needed, dangerous when not. The kindest thing you can do is put us back in the armory. 2 weeks later, the remnants returned to their frozen vaults. The ceremony was private. No recordings, no observers, just the Shadow Council and the soldiers who had saved the human race. Stone stood before his cryogenic pod, looking at the cold chamber that would be his home until the next crisis. His soldiers filed past him, each one entering their own pod, lying down, closing their eyes. Director Chun approached him. The old man looked even older now, worn down by the weight of what he had seen. "General," he said, "on behalf of humanity, I thank you. We will remember what you did." "No," Stone said. "You will forget. That is what humans do. You will build and grow and spread across the galaxy. You will become soft again. Your grandchildren will think that war is something that happens in history books." He smiled slightly. "That is good. That is what we fought for. And if something threatens us again, then you will wake us up." Stone stepped into his pod. "And we will do terrible things again. And then we will go back to sleep. That is the deal. That is what we are for." He lay down and closed his eyes. The pod's lid began to lower. "General," Chen said quickly, "is there anything you want? Anything we can do for you?" Stone thought about it. The lid was halfway closed now. The cold was beginning to seep in. "Tell stories about us," he said finally. "Not the truth. The truth is ugly. Tell stories that make us heroes. Give children something to look up to. Let them believe that humanity's protectors were noble and brave and good." His voice was getting softer as the cold took hold. "Let them believe in something better than what we really are." The lid closed. The pod hummed. General Marcus Stone, the butcher of Nexus Gate? The last of the old wolves went back to sleep. 1 year later, a young girl on a colony world asked her father about the Battle of Nexus Gate. "Who were those soldiers, Daddy? The ones who saved us?" Her father smiled. "They were heroes, sweetheart. The bravest people who ever lived. They protected humanity when no one else could. Will they come back someday? If we ever need them. But hopefully we never will." He ruffled her hair. "Now come on. Time for bed." The girl went to sleep dreaming of heroes. She did not know about the nightmares. She did not know about the scars. She did not know about the terrible things that had been done in her name. And that was exactly what the remnants had wanted, somewhere in the depths of space. In a vault hidden from all eyes, ancient warriors slept in frozen silence. They dreamed of nothing. They felt nothing. They waited, patient as death, for the next time humanity called. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not soft. Humanity was simply careful. And anyone who threatened them would learn the difference between the face humanity chose to show and the one it kept hidden in the dark. The stars continued to burn. Ships continued to fly. Somewhere, children laughed and played without fear. And in the darkness, the old wolves waited.